Welcome to LAN Technologies, and I'm excited because I decided to create a new network diagram, a new lab in Packet Tracer for me to walk you through and for me to teach you everything that has to do with LAN technologies based on the CCNA routing and switching exam. And that has to do with port security, with VLANs, with trunking, with BTP, Ethernet channel, spanning tree protocol, and inner VLAN routing. So make sure you go through these videos not once, okay? Make sure you go through these videos twice. And remember, go through these videos the way that I ask you to. So once you go through these videos, the first time, make sure for you to focus, okay? That's the only thing that you have to do. Focus on everything that I'm walking you through, on everything that I'm teaching you, and the information. Analyze the information that I'm providing to you. And how can you make it your own? Because it's not enough for you to I get it, I get the concept. No, it's for you to analyze this information to make it your own so you, not me, so you can use this information in a way that's gonna help you in the job interview process. And that can be for you to have a conversation with somebody else, for you to answer a technical question, or probably for you to tell a story, okay? Or a case scenario, obviously based on a technical topic. So analyze how I'm teaching you these topics so you can do the same, okay? So make sure you do that. And once you go through these videos the second time, that's for you to take notes. That's for you to do some research if you have to, and for you to do everything that I'm doing in Packet Tracer so you can have the same network, the same lab. Okay? So let's begin and talk about port security. Okay? So probably you know something about port security, or probably you don't, right? But imagine, let's play along, okay? Imagine, really imagine that you go through the job interview process, right? And there's 3 people in front of you asking you a few questions, and one of them asks you, can you define for me port security? Can you define for me port security? Because I see here in your resume that you have your CCNA. So can you answer that question for me? Can you define port security? So what would you answer me? Okay? Now the answer should be something like this. It enables an engineer or an administrator to configure switch ports to allow only a specified number of MAC addresses, physical addresses, on the switch port. Okay? And that means that, yes, you take a switch out of the box. That switch can have 12 ports, that can have 48 ports, right? Now you can manage those ports and allow, okay? Allow 1, 5, or more MAC addresses. That means, devices that can be connected on those ports, okay? So make sure you go through your own definition, because again, maybe someone is gonna ask you something related on port security. Because let me tell you one thing, all companies out there, they use port security, okay? Now, let's say that you answer that question, fine. And remember, okay, go through this process on, okay, how can I answer, any technical question, right? In a way that's gonna completely differentiate, myself from everyone else. Always think about that. So now, the same person asks you, okay, that was a good answer. So now let me ask you something else. We all know that when you take the switch out of the box, port security is disabled. Now, can you tell me how and where will you enable port security? What would your answer be? And the answer and how to enable port security is for you to apply the following command. Switch port, port security. Remember that. Switch port, port security. Now the question is, where? On global configuration mode? No. On global configuration interface mode, right? It's not just global configuration mode. No, it's global configuration interface mode. That means that you selected a port that you want to configure, or in this case, enable port security by applying that command switch port, port security. Okay? So always remember that. Now, you answer that question, fine, right? And the same person, right, the same guy, ask you another question. And that probably, it's going through this process because they need someone that knows really well port security, because they have probably a project related to port security, right? So that person asks you, you're doing great. So far, so good. So now let me ask you, when you enable port security on a port, or in a few ports on the switch, what happens? Can you tell me what happens once you enable port security? Let's say it in one port. So what happened on that port? Okay? And that's that by default, remember this, by default, okay? It's gonna allow only one device, one MAC address to be connected, not on the switch, on the port that you selected, okay? One MAC address, one device is gonna allow to connect, okay? And the violation mode, it's gonna be shut down. Remember that, by default, that violation mode, it's gonna be shut down. That means if a second device, obviously with a different physical address, a different MAC address, connects on that port that you enable port security, that port is gonna shut down, okay? And right there it says, by default, when you enable port security on a switch port, that port will allow the maximum of one physical, one MAC address. And the default violation mode will be shut down. And by the way, that's 3 violation modes: shut down, protect, and restrict. Okay, so remember that I'm gonna walk you through and the difference on the next few slides, and also once I walk you through and creating this new badass lab. Okay, but now you know, right? And this is for you to probably for you to stop the video, right? And be like, okay, now I know something that I didn't know before. Okay, about port security. Now I know how to enable port security. Not on the entire switch, that's based on port or based on ports on the switch. And the only thing that I have to do is to select the port or select the port that I want to enable port security, and just for me to apply the command switch port, port security. And that means by default, without me doing anything else, it's gonna allow one computer and that port, on those ports, right? Only one device, a computer, laptop, printer, router, it's gonna be only one device, be able to connect on that port that you enable port security. And if it's a second device connected on that port, right? What's gonna happen? The port is gonna shut down, okay? So, now, this is also for you to know once you go through this process on, configuring port security, okay? Because probably it's all depending on the company. Probably on one department, you want to configure port security one way. But probably on another department, the same company, you want to configure port security a different way. Okay, so you always need to think about, what's the outcome that I want to get out of it, based on anything that you do in your IT career and a project that you are working on. So right now, right, port security. So what's the outcome that you want to get out of port security? And the first thing that you need to think of when you think about port security is maximum of MAC addresses to allow per port. So I'm like, okay, probably I have in one department, I have the marketing department and the sales department. And based on policies or based on the manager, or based on the network design, we're required to allow 2 devices to be connected, okay, on each port. So the maximum allow on each port and the switch based on the sales department and marketing department, that's gonna be only 2. But probably on the other departments, that can be the production department, that can be where the management, the executives, that based, again, policies, the network design and everything else, only allow 1 device, okay, per port to be connected, 1 MAC address, okay? So again, what's the outcome that you want to get out of it, right? Now that's the first thing that you need to think of. Now the second thing, do you want to configure those ports based on the MAC address manually? Meaning like, oh, I'm gonna have to go to those, 40 devices or 200, client computers and get their MAC addresses, and to make sure where those client computers they're gonna connect to, and me, going on that switch on that port and, manually, putting the MAC address. I mean, that will be a nightmare, right? Because obviously, I mean, for a small company, that's fine, but imagine having like over 200 computers. And those 200 computers, they're connected probably in 3, 4, 5 switches. That's gonna be a nightmare, right? Might as well use the other option, the sticky command. And that's basically saying on those switches, on the switch and on the ports, hey, by the way, only allow, let's say, 2 MAC addresses to be connected. And by the way, I'm not gonna tell you what are those 2 MAC addresses, but allow the first 2 that connects on this port. And that's by you applying that sticky command. Okay, now the last thing, which violation mode do you want to apply? And probably you're thinking, well, I want to apply the more secure one, the one that shut down. If another device connects that's not supposed to, for the port to be shut down. Well, that can be a good idea, but I don't think you want, a phone call like every 20 minutes based on that same problem. Hey, I don't know what happened. I see everyone that's able to connect on the network, but me, a few minutes ago, I was in, but now, I'm getting some error message, I cannot connect. So yeah, I don't think you want to get that phone call every 20 minutes, right? So again, what's the outcome? And remember, when you go through this process and learning technical information, start creating your own stories, your own case scenarios, because that's how it's gonna make a lot more sense to you and for you to be able to really remember this information, okay? And that's the reason why I'm walking you through and learning port security this way, okay? Now, about that violation mode, okay? We have 3. We have restrict, we have protect, and we have that shutdown, right? And we have 1 physical switch in this case. And I can select, in this case, 24 ports and be like, okay, allow only 2 MAC addresses, 2 devices to be connected on each port, okay? And if a third device connects on that port, the violation mode to be restrict. But, right here, because these ports belong to another department, I just want the violation mode to protect. Or might as well, let's go all the way to shutdown, okay? And I'm gonna walk you through on this process once we do, the lab and the big difference, okay? But shutdown, the port is gonna shut down fast. protect, it's not gonna allow that computer, the third computer in this case, if you allow only 2 MAC addresses per port, a third device to be able to connect. That's it, it's not gonna allow it. But you will get no notice that that's happening, and if they connect the previous computer that was connected and that port, it's gonna work fine. That's gonna be no problem. Okay, now restrict is the same as protect. The big difference is that you're gonna get some logs. In this case, on the switch, saying, hey, something is up. I'm just letting you know. I'm giving you like a notice that something is up, based on port security. And the violation count, it's gonna go up. And that's something that I'm gonna walk you through in the next video once I walk you through on how to configure port security. And before I do that, the last thing, okay? And many companies do this, okay? They turn off unnecessary switch ports, okay? So let's say, on the company that I work for, probably it's a huge building, but out of that huge building, we only used, the first 4 floors, right? But on one of them, we don't have that many users on one section. And I know that the jack ports on the wall, they go all the way and connect back on this part, on this switch, okay? So, and I noticed that that's a lot of people that pass by, through that section. And obviously, I don't want anybody just to pass by and for them to plug in their network cable and be able to connect to our network, right? So might as well to turn off these ports. So in this case, I will select the last 24 ports on that switch, and that will take me to that global configuration interface range mode. And that's because I selected more than one port, right? And then I'm gonna apply that shutdown command. So those ports, they're gonna be administratively down. And again, that's something that I'm gonna walk you through on this lab. And I'm gonna walk you through many case scenarios for you to really get this concept. So I'm gonna talk to you on the next video.